Scaling revenue operations isn't just about adding more tools or people. It's about orchestrating a high-velocity engine that bridges strategic intent with frontline execution. As companies expand across geographies, enter new markets, and adapt to ever-changing buyer behavior, go-to-market leaders are increasingly challenged to align operations, data, and execution across borders without sacrificing speed or agility. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Revenue Lounge podcast. I am your host, Randy Likas, and in this episode of the Revenue Lounge, we'll discuss what it takes to truly scale global revenue operations and go-to-market strategy into a high-velocity go-to-market engine. Joining me today is Jelle Berends. Yela is the Vice President of Go-to-Market Strategy at Miro. As a revenue operations and go-to-market strategy leader, he has enhanced commercial performance by synergizing ways of working, revenue technology, and data-driven insights. Hello, Yela. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks for having me. That was a great intro.
Great.
Nice to get started like this.
Yeah, so I'm really looking forward to this conversation. I usually like to start, maybe you could tell us a little bit about your career background and career journey and what your current role is at Miro today.
Yeah, of course. I think these days people are quite fast for checking out LinkedIn, so what you will hear there is that's obviously what you will see a bit there. I started my career at ING and LinkedIn as a commercial analyst, so mostly focused on data, what insights do we have and how can I help commercial teams get something out of it that helps them improve their efforts. That kind of is the start of my career. That's also what got me into Argen. They didn't have that muscle, they wanted me to build it, so I think that was a nice way of entering that journey. And I think in hindsight, it was the start of an incredible one. An adventure that I also think has shaped my career because I started as the first person on the ground and from there built a true global RevOps function with 60 people all over the world. And I think, that was an amazing experience. And I think it had it all. Literally the first words myself and Roland, the CCO, was about, hey, I think the first goal is to make the commercial organization more data-driven. And it was like, let's go, let's get into it. And you start to realize, well, we don't actually have the best data to get there. And I don't think we have the systems that are generating that data or ways of working that systems can handle to get there. So it was really starting with the foundations, building the first pillars, and focusing on sales in the beginning. And I think back then, obviously, RevOps wasn't really a thing yet. It was, I remember from some articles that I spotted back then, commercial operations was a bit of the buzzword. But RevOps wasn't really a thing. But as we start to evolve in this and my focus on sales started to reach a point where it's like, hey, I think we've optimized the vast majority within sales. Maybe we should look at what's happening before that or after that in the funnel. And I think that started to get more in what we see and what we know about RevOps today. It's like really looking at the end-to-end funnel and see how can you optimize commercial performance from there. So that whole journey was about that, fantastic one. And I've seen the company in these years also grow from 450 to 5,000. And it gave me some sort of the feeling like I reached the finish line. Yeah, it's like an amazing journey. The first time I entered the building, obviously you had a feeling like, hey, something's going to happen, but can you expect all of this? Well, it happened and it was fantastic. But again, it gave me the feelings like, hey, I might have reached the finish line. So I was thinking about what's next and reflecting on that, I realized RevOps is what I enjoy the most. So maybe I should look into a new environment, trying to find a new adventure, if I can do it all over again, so to say. So that was also the moment to take a bit of a break, enjoy life to the fullest, and in that period I found Miro. And I think Miro is a really interesting phase where we're in as a company because I think a lot of people got to know it from the whiteboard, the sticky notes. A lot of people got to use it during the pandemic, I would say. But in those years we start to see more and more in all those users, where can we add most value? And I think we're now at the point with the company where we start to look into more specific use cases of users on our platform and see with new products innovation, like how can we help better and get more value out of the products that we're able to offer. So that's really going from one product to a multi-product offering. And in that story I'm responsible for go-to-market, so that puts me quite close to the center of it, which is all the way from thinking about, hey, those great ideas that we have, how can we in a thoughtful way get them to the finish line, take them to market. And on the one hand, I'm doing that with strategy and program managers that are really looking at that process and making sure we follow all the steps to do that properly. And when we get to certain material outcomes, where I have an enablement muscle, I would say, a strategic one that has the role to also think from there, okay, if we reach a point where we can think about scaling this further, how can we take the go-to-market teams on that journey and make sure that they have everything they need to bring that to the market at best. So there's a fantastic role to play in a great time at the company. And I think what I just said, I was looking for that adventure. I think with this one I found one. So good experience so far.
Yeah, that's a really great background, and I think the fact that you have grown Arctic from really a small company into, I saw in your LinkedIn profile you had about 50 people on your team underneath you, so you certainly saw a lot of change. You had to build a lot of process around that. Your current remit being part of go-to-market strategy has, I think, probably a different set of, your remit's just much different, right? And I think of revenue operations, maybe I'm oversimplifying this, but it was like the how, and where strategy is more around the what and the where, right? Would you agree with that, or would you think that your part of your remit under strategy is a little bit different than that?
It's definitely different, right? Because I think at the moment I'm obviously looking at, okay, in terms of the company, what are the next big thing that we need to launch to the market? How can we help our customers set them up for success? But I think what also in a certain way helped me there is the RevOps experiences and being able to tap into those experiences, because I think it's not just about thinking, hey, what is a new great innovation to launch? It's also about how do you bring the company on that journey and make sure you have the company bring that effectively to the market. And that's where you need to think about, okay, these new products, how are they going to impact the sales process? What can I do with technology and AI to really support bringing that to market with the teams? What analytics insights do we need? The enablement, like what knowledge and skills do we need to bring? All those RevOps pillars are crucial in making sure that it's not just, hey, here you have a product and let's see from there. No, how can we really bring those teams on a journey and set them up for success so they can take it to customers?
So the move from a single product to maybe more of a platform, we see this a lot with different organizations, and I think what we see quite a bit is interesting is there perhaps is a new set of stakeholders, a new buying committee, if you will, as you look to enter new markets or you build new products that maybe not were the ones that you had targeted previously. And you've got to understand, how do we market to those folks, and what are the common stakeholders maybe that we had in our core product, and where are the new stakeholders that we need to involve in our new products. And so there's a lot of different components, I think, that go into that. So I guess the question would be, as you build new products and you maybe enter new areas, what do you believe is a core foundational things that you need to think about? Is it stakeholders? Is it process? Like, how do you think about that when you start going from single product to a platform?
Yeah, I think it's more like what contains a go-to-market package, so to say, right? And I think there's always a few things. First of all, what is the use case that you're trying to solve for? What are customers running into? And is there a clear need for that you can solve for? Second, it's about building that package. What's the value that you're going to bring? What are the products that are going to deliver that value that you talk about, to make sure that there's a match in there? That to me is on the strategic level maybe one of the two biggest pillars. That is there a need? And is there a way you can fulfill that need for your customers? That's the starting point. And then from that point onwards, you can really start looking into all the tactics in there, like, okay, what's your ICP? What's the monetization strategy? What are all the different parts of the package? And I can call them out loud, but I think that's where there's a lot of templates available that kind of showcase there. But to me, I think it's where do you drive most value if there's a clear need and a customer pain point that you can start solving for. So I think that is the starting point, and then from there you're going to fill in the details. Yeah.
So Yela, I'm curious, how do you ensure that your go-to-market strategy is truly customer-centric rather than it being company-centric?
I think that's something that you have to drive at the top of an organization. It also reminds me of my Agent days where we had it in our company culture. It was a statement that said we built to benefit all customers and not just one. And I think that's where it starts. Like, are you really driving from the top towards every part of your organization? That it's all about looking into your customer needs and trying to develop your solutions from there. And I think that's what it starts, is really to be explicit about it, that this is the way how we do things. And that you as a leadership team or the executives around in your organizations, they talk about it and they give that meaning and they bring focus to this. And I think from there it obviously trickles down in the organization where you make it part of your rituals, your habits. And I think, back then, there were product feedback loops established to really make sure that on an ongoing basis we would source from our customers, hey, what's most relevant for them? There were clear rituals around it to see, hey, based on that input, what do we think are the top priorities we start to prioritize? But I think these are more in the end activities that I think follow up from a clear starting point, which is about, okay, do you really make it part of your culture? Do you make it a priority? And also start living that from the top towards every angle of your organization.
So when you think about go-to-market strategies that you're maybe a bit of a change, where you're working with leadership to try to understand some of those changes, where do you think some of those change management breaks down from what leadership's objectives are to maybe the frontline execution?
Yeah, that's a good point. I think And just in general, and also as organization gets bigger, things are getting lost in translation, right? Leadership's it's a bold vision, this is where we're gonna go, but then at Argent, we were talking about is 5,000 people. At LinkedIn, there were, I think back then, there were already 10,000 plus employees. Now at Miro, it's like 1,700. It's a lot of people that you need to take on the journey, and they need to start working on the activities to get you there. And I think obviously the risk in there with so many things involved, things often dilute a bit and things get lost in translation. But I think that's where RevOps and strategy have a clear role, because that's where we play the translator to think about, hey, this is where we're gonna go. What are the innovations that we need to bring to the market to get there and give that direction? How do we set up our teams for success so they can take these innovations to the market? What should the sales processes look like? The tech stack, the enablement materials, etc. So really thinking ahead of that, like coming from the strategy, thinking about, okay, how can we set up the organization at best? I think that's where these two teams or organizations play a big role to make sure that doesn't happen. And maybe another thing as well is I think also make sure that you embed those go-to-market teams while you're still cooking, right? I think also at Argent it started already that with a lot of decisions, etc., you involve the sales teams. I mean, they spend thousands of calls on customers and with customers to hear what's happening in the market. So they are so close already with so much input on, hey, is this the direction that we should be going and how are we thinking of executing it? Does it make sense? Is it something that you can bring to your customers, right? And I think here at Miro especially, I think we're in a luxurious position where we have dedicated resources on this, so new product incubation specialists, and they're dedicated for us here to test out these new innovations. Does it resonate with the customer? Are we solving for a problem? And also what we built for the go-to-market teams to take it to market, is that sufficient or are there any gaps? So by the time that these folks come back to us and say, hey, we have everything we need, we're solving for the pain at customers, we're good to go, then with confidence you can also start having all the teams run with it because you know it's working, you've set them up for success. So I think again, having them part of that production phase, I think it's super crucial as opposed to waiting till you think you've done it all, handing it over and then realizing, okay, we've missed the boat in some areas. So yeah, have them close to the thinking, I would say.
Yeah. Does go-to-market strategy work in partnership with RevOps, or is go-to-market strategy like a internal customer of go-to-market strategy? And what I'm trying to drive at it is, obviously, as you're thinking about different strategy take place, you've got to have the processes and the people and the systems that are in place.
Yeah.
Is it like joint, or how does that work?
Definitely joint. I think the way it's organized in my world is obviously that as part of being responsible for go-to-market strategy, I'm more involved to think, for instance, with product marketing, the three-legged stool of how we would call it within our organization, like how can we really play the best team together and bring those innovations across all angles to the market. But again, then it's about setting up the teams for success. And as much as with enablement, it's about giving them the skills, the knowledge that they need to take it to the market. It's more than that, right? Because if you look more into the RevOps pillars, sales processes, tech stack. These are also the critical foundational pillars that you need to put in place to make sure they have everything they need to excel across all angles. So I think that's where I would say RevOps and GTM strategy are more like Batman and Robin. And RevOps can think first about who they want to be, but it's really crucial that you look at it from that angle that, yeah, both you team up and to end, make sure that everybody has what they need to again bring our offering to the market.
How do the KPIs differ from RevOps to go-to-market strategy, or do they differ, right? You might be more looking at operating margin, go-to-market efficiency, customer acquisition costs, lifetime value, where across all of the different functions from marketing to sales to customer success, do you have a different set of KPIs in strategy as you do in RevOps?
Well, I think there's the KPIs that you own and there's the KPIs that you try to steer towards to, right? And looking at, for instance, what are the KPIs that we all focus on? I believe they are the same and they should be the same because it's that end-to-end funnel and where you look at, hey, where in that commercial funnel, the customer journey, do we feel there's room for improvement or where do we need to put our focus? So I think that allows us both to, from a strategic perspective, sharpen the focus and think of where should our efforts go into, which part of the funnel. From the KPIs that we own as teams, I think that's obviously where it's different because I'm much more focused to see, okay, bringing those innovations successfully to market, more from a product perspective, so to say. And a second part in there is obviously also with enablement teams, make sure that people feel comfortable that they can bring it to the market and that they have everything they need. But that's obviously where you start, and that's also why it's a partnership. That's where the second part comes in, is that, yeah, obviously RevOps has more KPIs around, okay, are the sales processes realizing productivity gains and efficiency gains? The tech stack, is it not slowing them down? Is it accelerating their efforts? Is it taking the admin burden away? So that's more around operational efficiency and making sure that it's a smooth running engine, so to say. But as much as they have different focus areas, I think again it all comes together and it's very much connected, so to say.
What about AI? We'd be remiss not to talk about AI. It's in every board conversation, and I think probably almost every podcast right now, right? Yeah. So when you think about AI today, and you think about the opportunities of AI across every different component of go-to-market, where do you think the biggest opportunities lie? How are you looking at that as far as maybe leveraging AI for the different functions of go-to-market?
Yeah, so I think AI allows us to do stuff that a human being was not capable to do before, right? I think that's the most impressive thing. And I think one of the most interesting use cases that I think we've all tried to tackle the past years in various ways, by checking in, building your rituals, trying to analyze customer data with analysts. It's about, hey, what are the biggest customer needs out there and what should I focus on? What we just discussed, that's one of obviously the big focus areas for me. And I think obviously AI gives us now opportunities to go to a lot of text-heavy data, customer tickets, phone calls, a lot of other resources, and to help us give insights across those 10,000, 100,000 different data points. What is the biggest topic out there that you should focus on? And it's not just giving me those different points and being able to summarize it, but it also applies intelligence on top of it and tells me, in line with my priorities and what I should focus on, what that could look like. And that it doesn't even take the operational burden away, because simply that was not possible at the scale on how it's done today with AI. So I think especially around the ability to look into voice data, text data, etc., like that's massive, right? So I think that's one of the key use cases that I'm most excited about. It's going to give me so much more insight in what's happening out there and how I can prioritize. It was not possible before, right? So I think that's where it's solving for a massive use case, and it's just fascinating that it's possible now. Yeah. But to your point, there's a lot of buzz as well, lots of things happening across all angles, and that sometimes creates a bit of noise.
Yeah, there's so much promise, right, in terms of what it can do. As I've talked to others like you on this podcast, I think one of the struggles that people have shared is to deliver on that promise, we've got to have good data for the AI model to feed. And when you think about legacy go-to-market motions, there's a lot of data silos, like the marketing stack has data that has siloed, and same thing with the different sales tools, and same thing with the different CS tools. And so one of the struggles is to be able to provide the AI engine the right data to basically spit out the proper analysis. That's a struggle. So I'm just curious, what's your perspective on data right now? Do you see a lot of silos across, whether it be Argen or what you've experienced thus far, and how do you overcome some of those silos?
That's a good question. I think silos are just there. That's just the nature how things are organized. And I think, obviously, product is working on in their ways defining what the product looks like, and they have their resources, they have the bill of material, the knowledge, etc., documented. Then there's obviously the marketing systems, the sales system. I think I recently saw somewhere like the amount of solutions customers are using or companies are using to get their stuff done, tech solutions in light of the RevOps topic, is like hundreds, right? So I think there's all this data, and I think that's where the challenge will always be. But I think as part of these AI solutions, and you see them popping up more, it's like the ones that can integrate, the ones that can make that middle layer available, plug and play, and that brings those sources together. And I think from there, it's also a great starting point for conversations, right? Because I think it's not just the data, it's also from that data extracting like, hey, what are the hot topics? And then it can help you break those silos. Because if you see from a product angle that X, Y, Z is now most important on their end, and you have no visibility on this at all, it drives you towards them, right? You want to start initiating a conversation, see what you spot there, and get from there more context. And I think it can really help break those barriers. But I think that will always be the challenge, and that's where there's a huge market in general for that. Like, how do you bring that data all together? But once you do that, I think it's a lot of time that you spend on the back end, which is not as exciting as the front end of AI, which is the insights and the innovation there. But I think don't underestimate. If you get that right, the rest will be even better. So I think it's crucial that you prioritize that as well.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with that.
And maybe there's a second point there. There's lots of things happening and noise, but I think it's not just the data, I think it's also the use cases. Because I think what you see there is that, especially where you see things accelerate, is there's a lot of massive companies out there that build great user bases and they have lots of customers and users using their product. These companies know what their users are all about, they know their workflows, and I think in that sense they can, in a more purposeful way, think about, hey, how can AI accelerate your work? How can it make your life easier, etc. And that's where it really hits the core of your role, maybe the core of your team, the core of your organization, and it can drive value in where it's needed the most. And I think that's obviously what you also see on the other end of the spectrum is obviously a lot of startups, a lot of new companies that come in without having these user-based great innovations. And there's a lot out there that is something, sometimes you also say you don't know what you don't know yet till you've seen it. And I think these startups show what that's all about. But yeah, as part of trying things out, there's also a lot of noise in there with things that are, turn out not to be as great of a use case yet, but are out there in the field. And to your point, take a bit of the attention away from everything in there, which is maybe already a bit too much. AI is all over, lots of use cases. But I think it's these use cases that I think are also important, like where do you have AI, let it impact you the most? I think that's one to think about as well.
Are there any use cases that you see maybe that would have the most value? I think the low-hanging fruit was how do we use Gen AI to maybe write a better email, right? Or how do we use AI to summarize what's happening across an opportunity? And there's I think the low-hanging fruit use cases are valuable, right? Save time to repeat mundane tasks. But any particular ones that get you excited?
Yeah, being a specialist in RevOps, I think it might be an obvious one, but the emails, the help that you get in terms of prepping your meeting, the way AI obviously is able to increase your customer facing time because it takes away the admin. I think, it's probably mentioned many times in this podcast as well, and in the context of RevOps, it's an obvious one, but I think that's where a lot of gains are. So I think let's maybe start with that one first. And then one answer that is a bit more interesting. So I think that's what I've just mentioned around, like, how can AI help you to get more visibility on your customer needs at scale? And I think, especially at the organization with hundreds and thousands of employees, it was the game you used to play by checking with the sales and account managers, like, hey, what's happening there? What do you spot? You have your customer panels, etc. But now the gong calls, the tickets, I was just saying that as well. So to not repeat myself, but being able to extract it at scale, that was not possible, right? Yeah. So I think that's one that I'm also personally in my role these days, I'm getting excited about because it gives me so much visibility that, I've never had before.
Yeah. The last question I have for you before we transition to the lightning round, which is a little bit more fun and personal.
Yeah.
What advice might you give someone who has maybe classically been a revenue operations person who's moving into a go-to-market strategy role? What does their first 90 days look like? And what advice might you give them in terms of being able to really understand the new remit and go-to-market strategy?
So I think RevOps sometimes makes you focus more on what's happening inside the house because it's a lot about the processes, the tech stack, the data, and I think especially if you move more into go-to-market street, and especially with the focus that I have in my role, it's about what's happening out there with customers and what do we need to do next from a commercial point of view to realize our ambitions and help our customers grow. I think if you've built your strengths on the RevOps pillars and you know how that game should be played, then I would say spend as much as possible time with customers so you learn what the world looks like out there and that you get a good feeling on, hey, what are the problems and the pain points my customers are running into today? So that from there you can really start getting the company around. If we want to realize our ambitions, I think these are the things we should start focusing on first, and from there really start building it. And then again, to your point, if you come from a RevOps angle, leverage the strengths from there, because once you figured out what to launch to the market, what it takes to equip those go-to-market teams with what they need to do that at best and to play the best role in that sense. So that's what I would really advise, like spend that time on customers, because you might be coming from more of your inside of the house perspective. So wide open these eyes and see what's out there.
Yeah, that's great. Let's transition to the lightning round then.
Yeah, that sounds fun.
What does it really excite you about your job? What's the favorite part of your job?
As I've been talking so much about the role, I think people by now see that it's a fantastic time to be at Miro. I think it's the people, the peers. It's such a cliche, but I think also in this company, the amount of talent and the backgrounds that I spot in the organization that let me learn, that give me new perspectives, new ideas, that's phenomenal, right? And I think that's also something that I always try to look for also in the places where I would love to work, is like, who are the folks around me that can help me reach new levels of impact, that can make me think differently. And I think at Miro there's so much variety in these kind of profiles and the insane amount of talent that we have, that I feel I'm in a very unique spot from that angle as well, where I can grow, learn, and have fun as well. I think, yeah, it's something to not underestimate. You need to have fun as well, right? We're spending so much time together, it better be fun.
Yeah, 100%. We spend how many hours of our waking lives at work? We've got to have fun when we.
I don't want to know,
right?
probably. It gets scary, maybe, but it's true, right? So let's make it fun.
Yeah. Okay, so there's always going to be a flip side to that question, which is least favorite, or I often ask the question a little bit different, is what's really hard about your job?
That's something that I start to experience more and more as I got more into global roles. You do it most of the time remotely. And that's necessarily not hard itself, but I think as a human being, as somebody that, I was just talking about the fun part, somebody that likes to also have a bit of a joke there and spending time with people, yeah, obviously we're all, like my peers, we're all over the world. And I think that's something that I miss. When there are these times QBRs of offsites when we do get together, that's where it sometimes gets an extra boost because you haven't seen each other that long, and it's just not possible to be all present in one place, especially with a global company and a global team.
Yeah.
So that sometimes makes it hard, but again, that's also a bit of the nature of the wall. So something that I start to find my ways, and yeah, as I said, the benefit of that, maybe always try to look at the upside of it, is that when you don't see each other for such a long amount of time, where you do get together, it's that extra twist that it brings, and yeah, good times from there.
Yeah, yeah. So where do you turn to for inspiration? I think I heard you say a lot of times that people that have new ideas, but is there any outside sources, books, blogs, communities, peers that you look up to in terms of where you get your inspiration from?
Yeah, so I think peers, like, let's start with that, because I think that's something that I start to learn more, that yeah, obviously you can try to figure it out yourself, but we're all in similar spots. We're all facing certain similar challenges. So I think to talk about it with your peers, where it might not be specifically related to the role, but just being open about it, talk, get different perspectives, get the ideation going. I think that's one that you can, the reason why I wanted to call it out, you can practice it every day, every minute, right? On the other hand, something that I spent a lot of time on, especially when I had my sabbatical, was Pavilion, quite a known community also for RevOps leaders. Besides the community, great content, great courses out there, whereas a lot of also peers in there provide you the content. So it's not just the theory, you get the good practical stuff, so to say. So I think that's one that I really would recommend as well. Great stuff over there.
Yeah. I was a member of Pavilion as well, and they have phenomenal content, not only that they provide, but even their events are just top notch, you know, in talking with peers. It's a great thing that they got going on over there at Pavilion.
Yeah, here you go. I haven't seen the events actually, to be honest, so I think that's something maybe to still see if I can leverage there. And then in general, events, like to your point, I think there's lots of events out there. So always trying to see, especially what's available around, obviously based in the Netherlands, what's happening here. I think try to have an eye on that and being able to see when there's an opportunity to visit those events. I think that's also always inspiring to get out of your comfort zone, your bubble, and see a completely different world.
Yeah. So I wanted to ask you about, you had a little bit of a sabbatical that you had taken, which I think a lot of people are probably a little envious of, because as we get a little bit maybe mid to late in our career, we don't get that opportunity to take some time. So I'd just be curious, how'd you spend that time and how'd you decompress?
Good point. I think, well, there's a few things in there. Like, first of all, trying to enjoy life to fullest. And I think that, obviously a father of 2 daughters, that's something where I get a lot of energy from. We had a newborn as well in that time, so that was obviously a key focus area. Thank you. So that's one. I've practiced many hobbies. So if you're ever in need of a hobby, I can think with you what it looked like. I've done shark fishing. It's possible in the Netherlands. People wouldn't think of it, but it's possible here. I didn't catch any of them, so I'm really bad at that one. So stopped that hobby quite fast also. It was summertime, so a lot of beach days, reading a book, swimming, playing golf, a lot of nature as well to really get the energy out of that. And I spent a lot of time also talking to companies because I truly wanted to find out after such a great time at Arjen, like I was really there also with the goal to see, I wanted to do as much as companies out there, so I get a good feeling of, hey, what do I want and where do I think I can find it? So I think that obviously also with the time that you have during such a break, there's obviously a lot more conversation that you can have if you would be full-time employed somewhere else and don't have that amount of free time available. So I also really try to leverage that opportunity as well. And that was great, gave me a lot of perspectives. Yeah, and then before you know it, months fly by and you're in that next adventure already.
That's right. That's right. It's nice because you can recharge the batteries a little bit and take some of those learnings maybe that you had with the time off and reapply them in your new role. So last question. Any advice that you've received maybe early in your career that's stayed with you that maybe you'd like to share with the audience?
Yeah, so he probably forgot already about it, but it was Brian, former co-worker at Arjen. I think in one of the conversations, I think we all face the same challenge. There's too much going on and you need to prioritize. And I don't know, he said something, and I will never forget, he was like, okay, what's the one thing you want to be remembered for versus doing many things mediocre? And it's just one of those sentences where like, holy smokes, I think I see your point, right? What do I want to be remembered for? And I think that's a whole different way, well, it's maybe not a whole different way to look at your priorities, but it makes it a lot more personal and gets deep into you, okay, where do you think you should focus? From that angle, I think that's something that every now and then I'm still applying. If he's listening, I'm not sure if he remembers, but it was great advice maybe 10 years ago already, and still every now and then it's these words in my head that give direction to, okay, ruthless prioritization, I know how to go about it.
So I was just going to ask, what is it that you would want to be remembered by? Is it ruthless prioritization or something different?
What do I be remembered by? I think what I really enjoyed about the Arjen journey is that I think I was the first person on the ground. So I was able to hire every single person after that, and I genuinely believe that everybody who joined my team was able to reach new levels in their career. And I think because I had some sort of feeling like I was giving this massive opportunity, and it gave me superpowers. It made me fly, you know, having that trust, having a boss that would work with you. Okay, hey, what do you realize? What do you want to realize? What do you want to do next? How can I help you get there? It's some sorting. That's also what they say usually about leaders. Like you lead by example. I think this is one of those examples where I've said, I think that's something that I want to give back to everyone that I hire. That, you know, if they join one of my teams, I see them growing. I see them reach new levels of impact, doing things differently in new and better ways. And I hope that everyone that has worked with me has a bit of that feeling like when I start working with Yela, I start to grow in a different way, and he was able to help me there, inspire me and really coach me through things. So I think that would be a massive compliment, and I think there are many examples because I've hired quite a bunch of people there in that journey, and still that can relate to that. That's something that really drives me, is that people aspect of the role as well.
Yeah. So the really interesting point in perspective is that you have been able to influence, I think, a lot of people, growing your team to up to 50 people in their career. So not only is it a lot of the processes and things that you've put in place that are probably going to live on for a very long time there, but the careers that you've been able to help inspire and grow as well. So I think that's a wonderful thing to be remembered by. So, well, listen.
Yeah. That's also something that I remember myself. It's because it's the moment where you have your goodbye moments with your team, and you look into the room and you're like, hey, this wasn't there before I joined.
Yeah,
what else?
It's the chef's kiss, right?
Yeah, the chef's kiss. I like it.
Great. I just want to thank you very much for your time, for your wisdom, and sharing it with our audience. So we are across the ponds. If you ever make your way to the States, look me up. I would love to maybe get together with you if you're here, and I will do the same if I'm over on your side of the pond.
Fantastic. Will do. Thanks.
All right. Have a good one.
See ya.